Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Flora Anabaka, and today I've decided to read the stories inside the short story novel called Bridges Without Rivers and Other Stories. So I want to read a short story titled Where is Liwan by David Ole Muke. Brother, we have to get moving now. It is getting late, Lesho said as he pulled his twin brother Liwan along. They rushed to their tent and fetched their weapons. They headed to the wide cattle enclosure at the far end of their compound and began letting out the animals. They had just had breakfast, a glass of warm milk, and boiled maize. This would be the only meal they would have for the rest of the day, until sunset when they brought the animals back home. Lesho was the older of the two, but only by a hair's breadth. They were both born at the same time. Lesho was the first to emerge from the womb, and Liwan closely followed him, grabbing his brother's leg from behind. Since birth, Lesho and his brother Liwan were inseparable. They did everything together, ate food, played, and even danced together in the moonlight. Their father was aware of this and frequently assigned them chores that they could complete together. However simple the chore, they enjoyed each other's company and were frequently spotted playing or taking care of the animals together. Lesho, the more active of the two, was a sturdy young man blessed with strength and courage. He was always the one who took the initiative. Liwan, his twin, was slower. On that day, their father, Ole Parantai, entrusted the two with the care of his 50 cows. They took the cows to graze on the great expanse of land near Lake Empaso. The land had green pasture that their cows enjoyed. Since the land in any village was flat, it was easy to care for the animals. The boys enjoyed sitting atop Imbirikani Hill and gazing out at the beautiful hills beyond the lake. The view was breathtaking, especially against the backdrop of the lake's vast waves. The location also allowed the youngsters to see where the animals were, no matter how far apart they were. Even though they loved to observe the environment around them, they never forgot what was most important to them: looking after their animals that were now spread out on the plain. The cows continued to graze happily as their neck bells tolled loudly. They faced different directions, mowing down the lush green grass. After a few hours of grazing, the cows began to slow down. They moved towards the trees at the center of the plain. At midday, when the sun shone bright on the waters of the lake, the air became humid. The boys knew that soon the cows would be thirsty. At the appointed hour, they would be coming down to water at their usual watering point at the lake. Lesho stood up from his sitting position, jolted by something he had seen. He shoved his brother by the elbow and pointed to the center of the lake. "Do you see that? What is that in the water?" he asked. "There is something big in there," Liwan said, standing. He looked intently at what his brother was pointing out to him. At first, I had thought that it was a water wave, but clearly it is not, Lesho added. The two boys looked at the thing in the lake. It was big, with a bluish color, similar to a large prey. It moved around, turning and facing different directions. It had what looked like wide wings. The animal jumped up in the air, split into 3 parts before coming together once more and landing on the waters again. This took the boys completely by surprise. The boys were fascinated by the creature's movement, although something about it seemed odd. While this was happening, they could see fishers on the lake going about their business, oblivious of what was going on around them. Whatever that is, it must be something dangerous, Liwan said. It could be one of those creatures grandmother tells us about, the ones that barely come to the surface of the lake. Remember the story she told us? What is that title again? Zitu and the Shepherds, Lesho said. But she said they only do that at night, not during the day. Anyway, we should be careful, Liwan said fearfully. The moving creature changed direction and began approaching them. The boys froze in fear. Their hearts began to pound and race. They gazed out at the lake and the floating creature that was approaching them at the speed of light. Lesho quickly picked up his spear that he had planted on the ground. He started running. Liwan followed him, screaming at the top of his voice. They ran for some time before finally stopping to catch their breath. When they looked behind towards the lake, they saw nothing. Just as it had appeared, the creature seemed to have suddenly vanished. It had disappeared completely. They looked around the lake, trying to locate it, but there was nothing. The waters of the lake were serene and calm once again. All that could be seen were the odd fishers who were busy with work on the other side of the lake. They hurried towards their animals. The two assured each other that they would always be careful while taking the animals to graze. They also promised each other never to go to the side of the lake where the creature had appeared from and disappeared to. They reached where their animals were and quickly drove them away from the lake. On that day, they did not bring them down to water in the lake as they often did, for they were afraid of the strange creature they had seen earlier in the lake. The following day, Olevarantan asked Liwan to take charge of the animals alone. He wanted Lesho to remain at home and help him to repair the cowshed. Liwan bid his twin brother goodbye and rushed to follow the cattle moving out to graze. "See you later in the evening," Liwan said. "Go well, brother, and take care of yourself. Please, do not go near the lake. Remember what we saw yesterday and be careful," Lesho told him. Without saying anything else, Liwan ran off to follow the animals. He directed the cows towards Esoit Plain. He tried his best to keep the animals away from the lake. He hoped to bring them down to water later in the day at Lariak Springs on the northern side of Naeni Plain. Before midday, the animals were too thirsty to continue grazing. They began to mow loudly since they had not been watered the previous day. He tried to drive the animals towards Lariak Springs, The cows did not move. They spread out instead, leaving Liwan confused and helpless. There were too many cows for Liwan to manage. He wished his brother Lesho was around to help him. Unable to control the numerous cows, he simply followed them towards their usual watering point at the lake. It was getting dark and Liwan had not yet appeared. The animals had found their way home. At first, Lesho and his father had given little thought as to when he would arrive. However, it was now hours since the cows arrived, yet Liwan was still not home. The elders were notified about his absence and immediately a search party was launched. They started by following the path the cows had used to come home. They then formed different groups which dispersed to different directions. When they neared the lake, they combed the bushes towards Lariak Springs. They also asked the people they met on the way if they had seen a boy with a herd of cattle. Darkness closed in on them and it was now quiet, save for the crickets, water ducks, and the echo of the name Liwan in the air. What could have happened to Liwan? How come all the animals are home? Lesho wondered. He knew he shouldered his brother a lot, but was confident that Liwan had the ability to defend himself. Also, there had never been an incident where someone went missing on the plains, save for those in the fairy tales their grandmother narrated to them. Did Liwan encounter a dangerous predator in the bush on his way home? What predator would only be interested in his brother and not the cows? Lesho could not find any answers. Liwan's mother was inconsolable. She wailed in agony. It was the stabbing agony of a mother who had lost a dear son. Liwani, my son, where are you? The village women understood her pain. They were mothers. They knew the pain of loss, the loss of a child. They sat encircling her. It was as though they were shielding her from the beastly grief that threatened to devour her peace. Take heart, Mama Liwan. Liwan will be found. Maybe he is in the bushes, or he went on a fishing adventure with the fishers. The women muttered solemnly. Meanwhile, the groups that had dispersed to the bushes surrounding Naeni village finally met on the shore of Lake Empaso. None had found Liwan. There were a few fishers still on the shore. They were informed about Liwan and instantly agreed to help. The fishers rowed their boats gently, carefully scanning the chilly waters of Lake Empaso. The waters of Lake Empaso were eerily silent, almost ghostly as the fishers quietly rowed their boat across the lake. Only the water ducks could be heard quacking as they made their loud and ending cry. The fishers were gone for 1 hour. When they returned, they had found nothing. Lesho could not get his mind off the strange thing they had witnessed. He could not imagine that his brother's curiosity could have got the better of him and led him to the lake to find the unusual creature. His heart raced and his stomach ached at the thought of it. He, however, could not speak about it because no one could believe such a crazy story. He himself could not, even though he was afraid. Maybe whatever they thought they had seen was just a figment of their imagination. People retired to their homes at midnight. They agreed to meet again in the morning to continue their search. In the morning, the village chief, Ole Keteko, ordered Lempa, the horn bearer, to sound the powerful and winding horn of the kudu. This was to summon all the young men and women of Naeni to a big meeting at the center of the village. After a moment, 60 people gathered at the big tree in the village. The chief addressed the young men before they began their search. Everyone hoped they would find Liwan alive. If he was dead, they hoped at least to find or gather evidence of his demise or something that would help his family find closure. The search party combed the surrounding grassland around the lake. They moved across the length and breadth of Naeni village, searching for the missing young man. By nightfall, nothing had come up from their search. The chief later called off the search. It would resume the following morning. By the third day of the search, a somber mood had engulfed the village. Liwan's mother's eyes were swollen. They looked like a ball with small holes. The number of people who had volunteered had increased. Senior elders had also joined the search. They all assembled on the shore of the lake. Oleketeko stood to address the villagers. He stopped midway through his first sentence when he saw a canoe with fishers rowing fast towards the shore. Everyone turned their gaze towards the people who were rowing the canoe very fast while waving at them. Do you think Liwan is in that canoe, Father? I have my fingers crossed and I hope he is in the canoe. When the canoe arrived on the shore, the entire group noticed that it indeed have a boy, and that boy was Liwan. The relief on Lesho and his father's faces was evident. Everyone was relieved. What happened? Oleketeko asked. His tone portrayed curiosity and relief. Where did you find him? Lesho asked before the people on the canoe could respond to the first question. We found him in Mate, the small island in the middle of the lake. He was confused and uttered incomprehensible words, but he has not spoken since. One of the fishers said, "How did he manage to get there?" The question was met with silence because Liwan was unable to respond. The fisher had no idea how he got there either. They had only saved one boy who was alone. When word spread on the island that the villagers were looking for a lost boy whose description matched the one they had found, they brought him with them. Lesho was relieved that at least the strange creature had not taken his brother. He concluded that maybe Liwan had gone swimming. But how could he swim all the way to an island in the middle of the lake? He knew Liwan was a good swimmer, but the prospect of swimming all that way seemed impossible. Either way, Lesho was glad his brother was home. He was overjoyed to see his brother. He went to embrace him, causing everyone around him to fall silent. He held him close to his chest as he cried with deep emotion. He had missed his brother. The 2 days had been an eternity. Their father moved closer and embraced his 2 sons. The crowd started dispersing. Lesho, Liwan, and their father walked home. There was a celebration to welcome Liwan. The news that he had been found traveled throughout the village. The women were singing and dancing. Ululations could be heard from a distance. Although Liwan had no visible injuries on his body, he looked disoriented. Not only was he quiet, but he also did not recognize any one of them. He had a glassy look in his eyes. A menacing man was called to attend to him. The man put special oil on his palms and massaged every part of his body with it. He then prepared a herbal concoction using special herbs and gave it to him. Liwan took a glass of warm milk thereafter. Liwan did not speak for 3 days, though he could understand what was spoken to him, as he would often smile, nod, or shake his head. The oddest thing was that he could not recall any of his family members. The medicine man assisted Liwan every day. Gradually, like the sprouting of a seedling, Liwan started to regain his speech. On the 4th day, Liwan could respond to greetings. The family members broke with unutterable excitement. Liwan's mother ululated. Ole Parantai bellowed in happiness. Lesho hugged his brother and shed more tears. They were tears of joy. Lesho could not help but wonder if his brother's absence had anything to do with the moving creature in the lake that they had both witnessed the day before he disappeared. There was only one way to find this out. That was through Liwan. Thank you for watching and listening to this story. I hope to see you in the next story. Thank you. Have a good day or night, evening or morning, whatever the day it is to you. Goodbye.